Most men think the relationship ended when she left. Didn't. Before we go deeper, hit subscribe and like the video. Because for many men, the most dangerous phase doesn't happen inside the relationship. It happens after it. This is the phase no one prepares you for. No one warns you about. And no one teaches men how to defend themselves against. Because once a woman loses access to you, her psychology doesn't always move forward. Sometimes it circles back. Not for love. Not for reconciliation. But for control. Here is the uncomfortable truth most men learn too late. An ex who cannot regulate her emotions will try to regulate you. Not with force. Not with honesty. But with psychological pressure. And if you don't understand the mechanisms, you become vulnerable, especially if you still care, still remember the good times, still carry guilt, or still want closure. Manipulative exes don't attack directly. They exploit emotional residues. They exploit unfinished business. They exploit empathy. They exploit nostalgia. They exploit male guilt. They exploit your desire to be the good guy. This is not about evil. This is about emotional economics. When a woman loses emotional supply, validation, attention, or identity tied to a man, her nervous system goes into deficit. And deficit behavior always seeks compensation. Let's break this down coldly. A manipulative ex is not trying to get you back. She is trying to restore emotional leverage. And leverage can exist even without a relationship. The first tactic is memory hijacking. She resurfaces shared moments. Old jokes, songs, photos, inside references only the two of you understand. Why? Because memory bypasses logic. The brain doesn't distinguish between past emotion and present reality. When she activates nostalgia, she reopens the emotional channel. Once the channel is open, influence becomes possible. Men fail here because they mistake memory activation for affection. It isn't. It's access testing. The second tactic is emotional guilt framing. You were the only one who ever understood me. I guess I just wasn't enough. I hope you're happier now. These statements are not vulnerability. They are psychological hooks. They reframe the breakup as your moral failure rather than a mutual outcome. Men are biologically wired to respond to perceived emotional harm in women. This is protective instinct. Manipulative exes weaponize that instinct. The third tactic is manufactured crisis. Sudden emotional breakdowns, health scares, loneliness confessions, statements that imply fragility. Not because she needs you, but because she needs your response. A response proves relevance. Silence proves loss of power. Attention is the currency. Concern is the payment. And once you pay, the pattern strengthens. The fourth tactic is sexual ambiguity. Not full desire. Not full rejection. Just enough flirtation to destabilize. Late-night texts. Double meanings. Reminders of physical chemistry. Why? Because sexual memory is one of the strongest emotional anchors in the male brain. It blurs boundaries. It lowers defenses. Creates confusion. And confusion is fertile ground for control. Now let's talk about the most dangerous tactic of all, victim narrative reversal. She positions herself as the wounded party. You become the one who changed, who abandoned, who became cold. This reframing does something critical. It pressures you to re-engage to repair your self-image. Men don't want to be villains. Manipulative exes know this. So they rewrite the story until you feel compelled to defend yourself. Defense requires engagement. Engagement restores access. This is the loop. Now let's talk about real consequences. Men who stay emotionally accessible to manipulative exes experience chronic emotional fatigue, difficulty bonding with new partners, subconscious loyalty to the past, delayed healing, erosion of masculine polarity, loss of clarity, and identity fragmentation. You think you're being mature. You think you're being kind. But what you're actually doing is bleeding emotional energy into a closed chapter. Here's the escalation phase most men don't see coming. When passive manipulation stops working, intensity increases. Accusations replace nostalgia. Anger replaces vulnerability. Blame replaces longing. This is emotional withdrawal aggression. If she cannot control your presence, she will try to control your perception of yourself. This is where men get dragged into arguments that no longer have a goal. Because the goal isn't resolution. The goal is emotional entanglement. Now let's compare two strategies. Strategy 1. Being nice. You respond politely. You reassure. You explain. You stay available. Short-term reward. Reduced conflict. Long-term cost. Prolonged emotional captivity. Strategy 2. Emotional detachment. No emotional explanations. No nostalgia engagement. No crisis management. No defending your character. Short-term cost. Discomfort. Long-term reward. Psychological freedom. The math is not equal. One drains you. One restores you. Here is the defense system men must internalize. First, no emotional availability without relational commitment. Access must match status. Second, no responding to emotional bait disguised as closure. Closure is internal. External closure is a myth. Third, no nostalgia conversations without present intention. Memory without direction is manipulation fuel. Fourth, no guilt-based engagement. You are not responsible for regulating another adult's emotional state. Fifth, silence is not cruelty. Silence is boundary enforcement. Now comes the awakening moment. Once you stop responding emotionally, something interesting happens. She escalates, then collapses. Because manipulation requires participation. When participation stops, the illusion breaks. And here is the part most men don't expect. Respect often returns after detachment. Not before. Because emotional sovereignty is attractive. Even to those who lost access to it. But by then, you no longer need validation. You've outgrown the dynamic. Here is the final truth every man needs to hear. A manipulative ex is not holding on to you because you were special. She's holding on because you still respond. The moment you stop feeding the pattern, the power dissolves. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. See the pattern. Protect your energy. This is depth realm.